Shortly before that, my mother was making, was filtering rice. I mean, what she used to do when she used to cook the evening meal was she would wash the rice in water. And I noticed that she was throwing half the rice down the drain, which came out of the gutter and out of the house at the other end. And lots of children from the neighborhood would gather in the gutter, picking up the grains of rice from the gutter that she was washing out. So I said to my mother, because we were facing a drought, this is Bihar in the 1960s, why are you wasting so much rice? I was quite a precocious child even those days. So, and she said, well, there are poor people out there, so we don't, what I'm doing is actually sort of feeding them that way. So I said to her, but this is an extremely inefficient way of feeding them. If we are serious about feeding these poor people, and I was touched by my mother's humanitarian generosity, why don't we bring them into the yard and give them a meal rather than giving them grains of rice through the drain that they had to pick up? To which, I got a clout around my ear and told not to be such a smartass or whatever the Indian equivalent was, and that was that. Now, this perceived problem has arisen because the term humanitarian has been monopolized by those engaged only in disaster and crisis relief. We must reclaim this for the wider endeavor of human development. Under this revised construct, we must return to the ancient spirit of humanitarianism. In other words, to put the word human back into humanitarian, which is to help our fellow humans with dignity that requires us not just to alleviate suffering, but to ask why there is avoidable suffering. So, where is care placed in this? Yesterday, therefore, I was pondering on these questions, and I did a random sample of you. I found 30 people. I've never met them in my life before. They come from all different cares, and I asked them this question. I read to them your mission statement, and I said, are you a humanitarian organization, or are you a development organization? And here are the results of my random survey. 10 of you said that you were a humanitarian organization. 10 of you said that you were both. And 10 of you didn't know what I was talking about. So, now, my serious point is, if you are able to bring genuine internal harmony between the humanitarian and development sides of your organization, beyond the accommodation registered in the beautiful words of your mission statement, then you face two key strategic choices for the future. First, what is CARE's unique contribution in an increasingly crowded, complex, and noisy world? You are a global brand with local presences, but that is not so unusual nowadays. Some expertise for which you are renowned as a predictable partner would appear essential in the competitive marketplace. This will also help to create or maintain the space you need in which your identity can continue to flourish. Second, what organizational capacities, shapes, and structures will you require in the new age of ambiguity and uncertainty? The key phrase here is organizational resilience, requiring in turn due flexibility and responsiveness. This may have implications for your governance and how you manage the forces of fragmentation that are intrinsic in all global networks. As the broader rubric for this session is collaborative action, let me conclude on that particular theme. And I speak with some experience of bashing my head against the wall of collaboration. 1/3 of my life, professional life, was spent in government as a donor. I was in the UK Department for International Development, where I bashed my head on donor policies. The other 1/3 of my life I spent in the UN, trying to make sense of the UN and ending up as a UN coordinator in Sudan. And now this part of my life is in civil society, where I work in the Red Cross, which is, I'm told, the world's biggest network, 186 national societies, 100 million members and volunteers. And I sit in Geneva and just about try very hard to stay about one step ahead of chaos. Because this is one of the price one pays of trying to coordinate a global network which is present in every country, has grassroots presences, and yet has all the diversity that goes with it. Yesterday, a Google search revealed 341,000 entries on word collaboration, including the seminal studies from tsunami, Rwanda, and other humanitarian operations. It is comforting to note that the findings of these many studies on cooperation, collaboration, coordination are so reassuringly similar despite the years that separate them. This is not intended to be a cynical observation on our failure to learn lessons. It simply illustrates the persistence of behaviors that are inherent in the way that humans set themselves up in tribal organizations, and this behavior will probably continue forever. Thus, I suggest that it is not worth expending too much energy on making marginal and temporary improvements through yet more elaborate collaboration or coordination structures that require more and more servicing, while possibly reducing flexibility and responsiveness. This is but a realistic recognition of limitations that are inherent in an unequal global system where size and resources equate to power and influence. However, neither should this be misunderstood as a return to isolated or silo working. Of course, collaboration and coordination are essential means towards achieving certain effective outcomes, but they should not become an end in itself, nor an ever-growing industry. It has been said that there are situations nowadays where there seem to be more coordinators than doing actors. My vision is of a world where humanitarian actors are automatically, and I emphasize the word automatically, are automatically inspired by common objectives and disciplined by an understanding of an accountable, and I emphasize the word accountable, division of labor. Elsewhere, I have called this as moving to the post-coordination age. What does this post-coordination or post-collaboration world look like? First, it will be a world in which there is much greater trust within the international system. This will only happen if we give primacy to the moral duty to get the best humanitarian good out of each humanitarian dollar. In such a new humanitarian order, we might have collaboration architecture that is different from now and possibly radically different. Imagine this different world where our great humanitarian organizations like CARE are only concerned with achieving the most benefit for the maximum number of people, where donors are motivated only by the desire to do good and not to pursue narrow national or personal interests in the case of philanthropists, and where there is fairness and predictability of response. We will then not need such elaborate and costly bureaucratic arrangements that you have within CARE and that CARE has in relation to other organizations as you seek your partnerships. So we won't need such elaborate and costly bureaucratic arrangements to police the mutual paranoia that characterizes the current system. The debate will then become more sophisticated than the technicalities of collaboration. And then we will not complain about, but instead welcome the ever-increasing numbers of humanitarian actors. This is because the humanitarian instinct, the urge to help others, is one of the oldest and noblest of human characteristics. It is practiced in many ways in many parts of the world. No single culture or institutional system has a monopoly on humanitarian wisdom. In the new humanitarian order, our institutions would not be prisons to box us in or fortresses to keep others out, but launch pads for yet more creative and ambitious humanitarian enterprise. Indeed, the challenge for the modern humanitarian is to liberate the humanitarian spirit in all who wish to join the humanitarian enterprise. But I fear that the greatest danger may yet be that we do the opposite. In other words, we suffocate the humanitarian idea by over-institutionalizing it. In conclusion, this way of thinking on maintaining humanitarianism in a changing world can be summarized very easily. It is a return to the most fundamental basics of finding the simplest way to organize all who wish to make common cause for one shared purpose, which is to help in the most direct way, and I emphasize the word direct way possible, all those who need it. Not here and there, but everywhere. We might call this a new global humanitarian compact. And if you wish to take up the challenge, CARE is well placed to take a leading position in making this happen. Thank you.